Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And without further ado, I want to bring in a cat who is really stretching the boundaries of musical vocabulary and what is known and what is unknown. He truly is living the insecure path of a musician, trying to search for that sound, that eternal note that probably will be forever ringing somewhere out of reach or out of sound, out of ear. He continues to play with all sorts of inspirational cats, a bunch of whom I've interviewed, guys that are true sonic warriors that are really looking to expand consciousness. And it's just incredibly difficult in this time because we are unable to be able to heal from the vibrations of live performances from my guest and so many other great musicians because of the virus. And so it's a new era, it's a new normal, and I think it's just important to understand that musicians are professionals. They should be treated as professional people. Music should not be patrons of the arts supplying it. It shouldn't be pay to play. It shouldn't be play for the door. It should ultimately be, spirit is the only currency, but make no mistake, music is a healing force. Andy Coe, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, thanks so much, Jake. Pleasure to be here.
It's an honor, man. You know, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this voice and the content, and then we'll come back and break it down.
And something very important when you talk about Elvin, Kenny, Max, Wuhan, and Mickey Roker.
Pete LaRocca.
And no, Pete Roker didn't come to mind there, but Mickey Roker did.
And Roy Brooks too. Well, Roker is a Philadelphia like you.
Now and Louis Hayes.
Yes.
And I noticed that all of those people that we thought about there, like they all had a particular powerful character on the cymbal, and the way and Michael Carvin. The way the cymbal beat was made and the way that you could hear them dance on that cymbal, and that would set the tone of the groove in the band. And it had a lot to do with where the music grew to. Before it got to where it is today, where you can go to and hear a band play a whole set, and they will play some really beautiful stuff on the drums. And never really have a characteristic shown through that cymbal beat.
Andy, you want to take a guess at who that is?
I'm not sure, but I dig what he's talking about.
Well, that was my interview from 2016 with a cat you've worked with before, Reggie Workman. It's hard to hear through the phone, but I need you to talk, especially as somebody. Listen, we all know that the guitar with Freddie Green was a percussive rhythm instrument for a long time, when the saxophone was the lead solo instrument during the R&B days, and then the guitar became the lead instrument, the lead voice in many ways. But I want you to talk a little bit about the urgency, the thrust, the tension and release, and the pulse of the cymbal beat, and how important that is for you when you work with drummers.
Oh man, rhythm is basically the life force of all living things and everything we know, and of course music and guitar. And it's easy to get lost as a guitar player, myself included, and forget that it's actually a drum.
Right.
But yeah, so I was lucky enough to grow up in Seattle, and we have some really good local big band jazz programs in our public high schools. And so I was lucky enough to get turned on to Count Basie and Freddie Green and play quarter notes for 4 years through high school.
So it was like a 4-piece. It was like I mean, that is so. Yeah. I'm so happy to hear that that's still somewhat in existence, because that 4-piece rhythm section is what lays the foundation for the urgency. Anyway, continue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel blessed to have been turned on to that. But yeah.
I mean, can you talk about, in essence, the idea of what he said there? That was from 2016, but he goes, you can go and see a great set of melodic improvisation. Some people call that jazz, and the drummer will never even touch the cymbals. Joe Sample said the same thing. The colors, Styx Hooper would be right in that conversation. Where do you see? How do you see vocabulary in music growing in today's world? Is it happening and it's just not popular music, so therefore people can't hear it, can't see it? Because all this stuff was just in the late 60s and early 70s. It was flowering, all this new music, because of the symbol on the character on the cymbals.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I hear new stuff happening in new music all the time. I mean, it's definitely different, but a lot of cats are in tune to the history of, our music and what's been happening and what has happened, and creating new sounds. I mean, I guess it's a little different these days because we have all sorts of different recording programs that are easily accessible, and effects you can easily access. Anyone can create their own sounds and stuff pretty easily these days, as opposed to any time in the past. But yeah, I don't know. That's a deep question there.
Well, I mean, this is welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. I mean, this is not fluff, man. We got to go deep. I mean, all I'm saying is, I've asked Stanley Clarke, I've asked, Ron Carter, and all these cats. The rhythm sections in many ways are the they can set the table for new musical vocabulary. They can't create it on their own. The hope there is that they can, as a rhythm section, can create an environment and set the table for those soloists or those cats that are, improvising, to bring what Ron Carter said, bring their kitchen solos to the bandstand. And I guess more to the point, just speaking as a guitarist, let's just break it down one by one. So you had the opportunity to play big band, but, with you, especially with the sonic nature of your playing, can you talk about a time on the bandstand when your ears grew the most and you learned dynamics?
Oh man, let's see. There was one time Slide Hampton came in to conduct us in high school.
Nice.
And yeah, it was. And as soon as he got in front of the band, for some reason, and he didn't really have to even do anything. It was just somehow his presence in front of us, conducting us. It was the most dynamic and kind of flawless, just incredible performance. And it was just in our classroom in front of nobody, kind of thing. But somehow he commanded the dynamics of our big band, and it was a pretty incredible experience. That was one experience that really stands out in my mind. And then another time, the Ray Brown Trio came into our jazz band class and spent a day with us. And that was with Gregory Hutchinson on drums and Benny Green on piano. And that was incredible. That was that. But I got to play a blues with those guys, quartet, and just got my butt handed to me on a platter. And definitely learned a lot from that.
Well, I mean, because I noticed today, I mean, a lot of bands, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but it's sometimes you walk in to see, again, I was born in 78, so, a lot of the stuff that
Yeah, me too.
Are you born the same year? Nice. So it's just like so much of the music that I fantasize about happened before I was ever born. And,
me too.
And so I've reached in and pulled out all these guys to interview, and Bernard Purdy was like, dude, he's like, all the hits that we made, all the songs had incredible dynamics. And I know that was in the studio, but Even when those guys were playing the Fillmore West, they were playing out of antiquated PA systems. You were lucky if you could hear if the first couple rows could even hear you. The point is that you really the bass wasn't necessarily mic'd all the time, so you had to your ears were growing, and now with all these great stereo sound systems and in-ear monitors and what happens? People get on the bandstand, they turn it up to 10, and it never the dynamic range never changes. And I just wanted to ask, to ask you, like with you, because you take these excursions, like who really helped you say, Andy, you don't need to say a lot, or, I mean, where did you learn how to just flow within the frame of the music? Some people would say serve the song, but I would say dynamics. Dynamics is missing especially in pop music, modern pop music. I just wanted you to riff on that any way you wanted.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, man. It's like, I mean, tons of musical acts I've seen throughout the years. You notice that they perform at one like volume level or one dynamic range, and they never really change from that, which is kind of, I don't know, it feels weird to me sometimes. I mean, it can be good for certain things, but I don't know. I mean, I grew up listening and playing a lot of classical music when I was really young, and that obviously has insane dynamics. If you ever listen to classical music when you're driving in a car or something, you have to kind of keep turning the volume up and down depending on what section you're in.
I did. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, one thing, I got to see Herb Ellis, great guitar player, a bunch when I was a kid, and and he was talking about. He turned me on to what ended up being one of my favorite guitar players, Charlie Christian. And if everyone doesn't know about Charlie Christian, check him out. Check out the track "Swing to Bop." It's awesome.
Swing to Bop, man. He was fusing. Yeah. Oh, wow, I don't even know that tune. I got to check that out.
Oh man, it's just a live bootleg recording from Minton's Playhouse in like 1941. Oh, my God. And it is insane. But Herb was talking about. All the cats were telling him, like, when he was playing, they're like, man, you need to check out Charlie Christian. You're playing, like, too many notes,
Right. You're talking too much.
And so that kind of, basically. But I don't know. I feel you. The dynamics can really, really make the music hit on an emotional level.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe the better, I mean, like, remember the guitar player, Scott Metzger, telling me that, sometimes people like bands feel like they need to like kind of just pulverize their audience at the beginning with noise. Some people would say with noise, with sound to get their attention, and then you get the other hand where it's like like Mark Copeland, the piano player, would say to me, Gary Peacock would be playing with Paul Bley, and the espresso machine was bumping around at the Vanguard, and people were. Glasses were tinkling, and they're trying to play this very esoteric, ethereal music. And Peacock would say, you know what you do when the audience gets too loud? You play softer. And I just wonder with you, how do you, Andy Coe, and any of your obviously depends on the room, but how have you, what is a unique way of you getting the audience to lock in a spiritual, I just feel so much, every time I go see music, I don't care if it's Jimmy Russell, or if it's Mike Dillon, or I've never seen you live, but I mean, I don't care who it is. I'm letting the body dance. I'm having an out-of-body experience. It's Discarga 101 with Jake Feinberg, and I don't know where. That's kind of we've become inculcated with, for better or for worse, of a very classicalized situation where we go and stare at somebody's facility. But I mean, what are the tricks that you've learned to be able to get people in the audience to lock in so that ultimately the collective consciousness can be raised?
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned earlier is a thing I do quite a bit, and I don't know if it works or not, but I think it does, for me at least, is if people are kind of just blabbing away in the audience, it can get kind of, frustrating.
Yeah.
If you're trying to tap into the trance zone, which is kind of like a big thing that I like a lot, is to try to get into a trance with everyone. But yeah, so basically kind of taking using the dynamics like we were talking about, and getting quieter and quieter, and getting so quiet that everyone who's talking suddenly realizes, at different points of time maybe, but they'll eventually realize, oh, what's going on? Like, I don't hear the sound, and I'm just blabbing away.
Wait, is there any, I think this is so important for younger cats that are going to hear this well after we've left this planet. I mean, can you talk about a time when you got it down to a whisper, like where, and like people, and because to me, that's, if you can keep that essence and vibe and not get distracted. I mean, I've seen people walk off the bandstand because people are talking because they just get frustrated. But here you are trying to stay locked in, trying to get to that trance state. Is there something that stands out in your mind when you were like almost ready to walk off the stage, but you composed yourself and lowered the dynamics to the point where people were like, oh, I'm talking?
Luckily for me, usually there's at least one or two people at my shows that know me and know what's going on, and so they will kind of take it upon themselves to help facilitate the group shift.
They're like, "Yo, we're gonna show you the door, my man." Like,
yeah, like if I'm bringing it down super quiet, which I do try to do, fairly frequently, just because it's nice to have that dynamic range, especially if it's like a ballad or if people are blabbering away like we're talking about. But yeah, usually when I bring it down to that level, it might take a while, but it generally will get to the point where it's almost complete silence in the audience. And at that point, you kind of have them, and then you just try not to lose them after that. So you just kind of start weaving it and building it back up. And generally speaking, it works, and they're with you on that journey that you're all on together, and it can be pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I dig, man. I guess I'm, we don't really love to deal with platitudes on the Jake Feinberg show. So my question is like, I remember doing an interview with Miroslav Vitouis, and he was talking about the original Weather Report group before Al Muzon was fired. It was, Wayne and Zawino and Vitouis, and they went out on tour, and he said that Al and Wayne and himself were able to play music. They were able to play music coming through them from the heavens. And as badass as Zawino was, he was a little bit insecure because the music was getting too free, so he would sort of tease or bring back the music to a chordal pattern or structure that was more comfortable. But you talk to studio cats all the time, like I do, and they tell me about people that have more gold records than they know what to do with, and they have more money, and they have had all this fame, but they're older now, and the phone doesn't ring as much, and they're very bitter and resentful. And it's because, and what I'm told is they didn't get the memo that they are merely a conduit for the music coming through them from the heavens. And I wanted you to talk, you are that kind of player. You play with those kinds of people. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about the first time or one of the earliest times that you can remember when you were merely a conduit for the music coming through you from the heavens.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. And I don't know if it's coming from the heavens or the universe or wherever.
Yeah, wherever. You can make it, that word is very subjective.
Source. Yeah, there's some source that you can kind of somehow tap, and it can come through you. But I don't know. I think the first experience I remember having with that in a group setting was probably like my very first. And we were terrible, and we were just jamming. But it was like we didn't know what we were doing, but we were just jamming, and it was like the most glorious feeling. And I've always tried to recapture that. It's just such a great feeling. But since then, there's been countless experiences, and that's what I'm always attempting to tap into, is that source that I feel like is just the moment. So it's always changing, and everyone's in it together. So if you can open your ears wide enough, then you could kind of jump on that with everyone. And if you're in that moment with everyone, it's like you can't really. It's hard to do wrong because you're just playing truth and reality at that moment,
If you, can you honestly say that it's like is there a band that you have or had worked with extensively to get to the place of telepathy? I mean, I think it's really hard. Like, you could bring in a super group. I mean, it's Buster Williams' birthday. I was in New York in January and saw him with Lenny White and Chris Potter, and those guys can ascend. They kind of don't need to necessarily, they don't have to see each other or play together for months, and they can just sort of lock right in. So I mean, like, and you've played with a lot of cats who are related to the Coltrane peeps directly and played with them. Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed Sonny Fortune, rest in peace. I mean, the guy was like, he would go out with Rashid Ali, and they would just play a 45-minute tune straight. And then it was like, they were, Sonny's like, oh, I thought we were playing for 10 minutes. They just got lost. I mean, do you feel like that can honestly happen? You have to build up trust. I mean, you have to, that's the key on the bandstand. So, I mean, like, is there a group you can point to? You talked about that early group. You guys didn't, quote unquote, know what you were doing, but in some ways that gave you complete liberation because the feeling was so good that you were free. And then sometimes you get into, you get into a situation where there's like, people are paying money to see you, so you feel, you have to confine yourself to what they maybe want to hear. Anyway, what are the antecedents to playing spiritual music for Andy Coe?
Well, there's a couple things in there, but I think it like, as far as putting together like a super group who haven't really played together much versus a group that has played together a ton. I mean, it's definitely, there's no one way or the other, but definitely if a group of people have been working closely together in any format or playing music together, hanging out together for years or whatever, it's going to be a little easier and more familiar to achieve that spiritual kind of trance zone that we're going for. But also at the same time, like, I mean, the first time I ever met Rashid Ali and went over to his pad and jammed, it was a trio, myself and him on drums and the great Jimani Smith on trumpet, and we just sat down and started playing. Didn't talk about what we're gonna play or anything, and then all of a sudden, it's about 2.5, 3 hours later, and we stopped.
This is unbelievable, man! Holy cow!
We hung out for about 10 minutes, and then we're like, oh, let's play some more. And then same thing again, we jammed, and then it was like 2 or 3 hours later, and that was the whole game. It was kind of a instant sort of connect, so that can happen as well. I mean, I'd been playing with Jimani since we were kids too, so that helped. But I've had other situations like that where you just sort of instantaneously can lock in with certain people, and maybe it's because you have similar, influences, or you've listened to a lot of the same music, or you're kind of on the same page. I'm not really sure, but
yeah, it doesn't matter. You've obviously, I mean, it's sometimes it's really hard to articulate this stuff. I mean, you're doing a heck of a job, by the way. But the thing is, what is the subtle non-verbal? I mean, we are such an intellectualized society now. Everything is so legalese. Everything hangs on words. And I remember Ndugu Chancellor telling me in one of our interviews, he's like, freaking, Hampton Hawser was like, dude, we've been, freaking talking for 40 minutes. We've been intellectualizing the music. We haven't played a damn note. I mean, do you find that I mean, you've played with a wide variety of people in a lot of different genres. Someone like Rashid, I mean, that guy was just flowing. It was just like synesthesia. Things were just flowing through him. And so, like, he's kind of an outlier in some ways. I'm not that hip to the trumpet player you're playing with, but I mean, can you talk about nonverbal communication on the bandstand that you use to get other people who you love and love playing with but aren't as easily adaptable to that free setting into a zone where you guys can ascend?
Oh man, that's a tricky one. But let's see.
Dude, you should have done your homework on this show, dog. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
World pandemic.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, you know what it is?
Good
It's a
time,
really.
but,
I mean, all I'm saying is I mean, Miles. Train used to come up to Miles and say, "What do you want me to play?" And Miles would turn his back on him. And then Train finally figured out it was like, "Oh, he wants me to be myself." Miles didn't have to say a word.
yeah, I mean that's the essential thing is just trying to, I don't know how to explain it, but basically try to have extremely open mind and a lot of patience with both yourself and everyone you're playing with. And the bigger ears, the better, just deep listening. And just sort of, I don't know, like there's a bunch of ways to do it, but for the trance stuff, it's nice to start off kind of slow. Like, I mean, you'll hear Coltrane, for example, start off a solo with kind of like a motif, or like start off a little simpler and then just sort of weave its way into like some crazy, insane thing for, 10 minutes or something. But
Right. Again, dynamic.
Kind of that
It's a sort of a dynamic
concept.
range thing as well. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the better question. This is so important. The trance. You find yourself. I mean, it's funny because I never saw the Grateful Dead, but the only thing I play for my daughters in the car is like the Crusaders, or once they dropped the jazz name. Early 80s Grateful Dead, very urgent, panic, almost like off the rails kind of music, but it's so visceral and ridiculous. And the thing is that their audiences never expected the same song to be played the same way once. And so it's kind of and like that's where you sort of, and then if you're all on the same page, that's the exhilarating part. And, for you, do you need to? I mean, listen. Without McCoy, McCoy passed. Rest in peace. And I listen back to Meditations. I love Train. I love what he stood for. I'm not obsessed. I don't listen to all his records, but I do have an analog cassette of Love Supreme. And when I listen to it, it's like the rhythm section is providing these sheets of sound so that Train can just blow over the top of that. So, I mean, can you talk about some of the drummers that you play with and bass players that are providing the padding for you to be able to, if you're not comping, that you can just go over the top and, just go out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really feel like, maybe I am going over the top of them, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm playing over the top of them. I kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe I have a weird approach, but I feel like everyone is just sort of playing together, and
Sure.
it's not they're not over the top of me. Sometimes they are. I'm not over the top of them. Maybe sometimes I am.
Yeah, language is a funny thing. Don't worry about it. I know what you're saying.
Aiming for that.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah, but man, I've been lucky enough to play with a lot of fantastic drummers, I think, and like a lot of different ones, and they have different ways of doing stuff, which will kind of reflect upon how I play, because I don't have one approach or one thing I do. Like you're saying earlier with the improv, and it's like there's a, I don't know, it's like there can be a form or not a form, but if it is a form, I mean, I don't know, there's maybe one band that I play in, but pretty much every musical thing I do, it's mostly improv. Even if it's a song I've played, 500 times, it's never been played the same way.
I freaking love it, dude. I love it.
But I don't know, the way I do it, it's completely in the moment and a new thing each time, and almost anything can happen. I mean, sometimes you'll have a form, so you're kind of in this form, but it depends on who you're playing with. You can adjust that form and take it out to any plane of existence that you want. Really, as long as cats are with you on it.
Can you do that with people that only have a this is such an interesting question. Do they have to have a huge big bag of vocabulary to do that, or
Not
no?
necessarily. I mean, it kind of depends on which way you're taking it out, like rhythmically or like stylistically, but not necessarily. You know, like if I'm playing a trio with a drummer and a bass player, then that gives me a lot more freedom. I can kind of take it whatever direction, as long as they're listening and can kind of and around the different, feels and rhythmic ideas and stuff, then I can kind of control the harmony at least that way. If it's that kind of setting, take that way out and play some rhythms and stuff. But
I'm talking to one of the most humble. I mean, I love how humble you are, man. It's like you really are like channeling. I mean, we're not gonna compare Andy Coe to John Coltrane, but I mean, I just love.
Oh yeah, no.
No, but I'm saying like in temperament, though. I mean, when did you learn? Can you talk about a time when you were humbled, and you, on the bandstand, like I mean, there are cats like the great Dick Burke.
Every time I play.
Well, but I mean, early on, you know what I mean, like where your ego, because what I'm saying is now what I hear in you is somebody who has to. You're not playing for bliss. You're playing to fucking live. Okay, that's what a musician. You play to survive, and to make some dough. Okay, but at a certain point, I'm asking about when you were really thinking you were hot shit, and then things fell apart, and it humbled you, where it made you the adversity made you stronger.
I don't know if I've ever really felt like I was hot shit, but one of the things I wanted to mention earlier when I had to play with the Ray Brown trio,
right?
That really like.
Why though? Explain to the layperson why that would be a humbling experience.
I mean, just because I knew at that point, I was well aware of who Ray Brown was,
right?
And had mad respect for him, and had seen him perform a bunch of times, and here he was in my classroom, and I was like, okay, I got to play a tune with this trio of world class, like amazing musicians. So I was pretty nervous, but and I was at that point I was like, okay, I play like I'm starting to learn jazz. I'm into like Led Zeppelin and Grateful Dead, Jimi Hendrix,
sure,
and like some old blues stuff. But like to me blues is like bam, 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 you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Exactly. I was like, what? I thought that's blues, and it is. But yeah. So I definitely got humbled there.
Well, that would be humbling for, I think, anybody. I mean, to me, I mean, like right now, let's just talk about now. How are you dealing in your own way with the adversity of this climate? I mean, if you are looking at the two things that are vestiges or remaining, one is sports is still a huge part of our culture. I was a baseball announcer for many years not for many years, but I pivoted out of sports because it got too corporate and wankish. But like basically, music is supposed to be an inherent part of our culture, and I know that Seattle is an outlier in the sense that there are lots of great venues, and there's so much creativity, and creativity is applauded, and there are underground record labels and just badasses all around living up in that bastion. But how are you dealing truly? What's your mindset? How are you going to get through this slog? Because it seems to me like one of the things that is going to be the last things to return is the ability to get into a club of maybe even 50 or 100 people to see Andy Coe play.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's I have to say, man, it's pretty crazy. Something that humans have never experienced before. And we're just trying to small businesses, small venues. All my friends that run venues and all my friends that are musicians are kind of getting screwed because, the government doesn't really apparently see us as legitimate citizens, apparently, or something. I don't know, but it's pretty rough, man. I don't know. I've been doing some live, like Facebook Live things, and those have been doing really well. And
what do you mean? Can you just explain what you mean by like the Sea Monster or places like that? Like, how are they getting screwed? Are they not getting small business loans? Is that what you mean? Like, how are they getting screwed?
Not yet. from what I know.
Yeah.
Not yet. A lot of them are banding together to try to form some sort of union of local clubs to try to petition our government for some aid. But yeah, it seems pretty tough, man. I hope they can survive, because that's a lot of my friends and a lot of the places I play, and we all help each other survive and help the community thrive, because people need the music, man. Music is healing. That's kind of my main thing, is music is healing. My mom was a music therapist, and that's where I got that probably. But,
well, that's so, to me, music, I went to Boston University in the late 90s, and there was, you go see Bill Frisell and Brian Blade or Rock Alarm and Billy Martin, and I'd be sitting there like just, maybe eating some mushrooms, but not really understanding like what spiritual music. I didn't get it. I was like there because it was like a Friday night and my friends were there, we were partying. And now it's like, literally I can go, well, I could in a time before go and literally, go right up to the bandstand in front of the speaker stacks and just get the ambient rage and pulsating vibration of everybody. I don't care if it was Joe Russo or Skerrick or Eric Deutsch or Denorio or any of these cats, and just walk out and for days, not weeks, but days, feel completely at equilibrium, completely even, healed.
Yeah.
Healed. And it's a fusing of the mind and the body. So, did you witness something with your mom, the music therapy, that was profound to you at a young age when you realized that there were really only two letters that separated magic and music?
Yeah, no, that's fun. I've thought about that too. But I don't know if there's one experience, but it was just, I grew up in a house where my mom was playing just music all the time. And so that probably seeped into my genes over years and years,
you said you learned about the importance of healing because your mom was a music therapist. So what did that look like in her job? She was playing in hospitals for people? What was she doing?
Yeah, well, she was doing that. She was one of the first ones in the Northwest doing that, and that was back before I was even born.
Wow.
So
what's her name? What's her name?
Teaching locally. Jeannie Coe.
Jeannie Coe. Is she still with us?
Yeah.
Oh, man, what a badass. So before you, in the 70s, she was in psych wards?
Yeah, 60s, late 60s.
Oh, my. So Vietnam era.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s. But, yeah, it's, I don't know, and her parents were musicians too, so that's kind of, I guess it's kind of, so I'm lucky they've always been supportive of me, which is great.
But did she get it into you at an early age, even though you maybe didn't recognize it, that the phenomena of spirit, like how music can...
Probably. I mean, it's not like she didn't like tell me anything, but just through playing, I think I kind of absorbed this that concept, honestly. And that's, to me, that's like what you're talking about. Like, every time I play a show, I talk to people and they're like, this live music is what takes me through the week, and makes my existence, enjoyable and livable.
You recognize that at that point, how many people are living they're doing a job, but they hate their job. So the only thing that they get off on is being able to see characters like you up there just on fire. And that just it's a mind melting experience. Descarga, it's the discharge. And I just, you know what it is? The better question that I wanted to ask you is not so much, we know that bar owners and club owners and musicians are up against it, but as a true creative, what are you burrowing down on with all this solitude and sort of, I don't want to say isolation, but what are you, because the Jake Feinberg show started in 2011, but I didn't start interviewing musicians. I didn't know what I was doing. I created something out of nothing, and it's gotten to the point now where my first book came out. I'm just trying to keep the momentum going, and I found my voice. But what are you doing to feed your creative soul right now in this time?
Oh man, I've been practicing a lot and kind of going back and learning a lot of music that I really love, and like going back on a lot of great jazz tunes, a lot of Thelonious Monk, and getting into it, and trying to further my sort of new styles that I want to incorporate, like stuff like Cat, like Lenny Bro would do, like harmonic wise, just trying to get better at interpreting the universe, I guess, through the guitar.
Don't gloss over interpreting the universe, man. That's so cool, man. No, I mean, are you have you marinated on like Terry Haggerty and Jerry Hahn, those cats?
Yeah, a little bit. Not probably enough, but
I mean, those were the two baddest guitar players at one time in the Bay Area. They were badass. I mean, anyway, I got another Name That Voice for you. I'm curious to know if you'll be able to pick this out, and then we'll come back.
Cool.
Section in Motown were 11 guys. So what you had on every session is you had two drummers, and they were mic'd with overheads, and they had the kick drum mic'd and those kind of things. Then you had usually three guitars and a bass all direct, and then you had congas, Bongo Eddie and Jack Ashford on tambourine were usually standing right pretty much in front of me. And Earl Van Dyke was playing that big piano, grand piano, like small grand piano, in the one corner, and then Johnny Griffith was on an organ across the room, and then in the overdub room was Jack Brokenshaw on vibes. So that was the nucleus of what we had. And with the drummers, ever since Cloud 9, one drummer was playing the hi-hat and the cymbal stuff, and the other drummer was playing the kick and the snare.
You make it sound so easy. I mean, that was the way it was when you arrived in 67, 68, or do you feel like that's always the way it was?
That's always the way it was. And then, but what you got, which you don't have now, you have 11 guys playing together,
right,
reading the same arrangement, and they're playing off of each other. That's how you get the feel. Nowadays, you got a click track, and you throw in a automated thing doing this and thing doing that. You don't have that interaction of all the musicians playing together at the same time, which is what we had at Motown.
All right, Andy Coe, who is that?
Wow. I don't know, man. I'm bad at voices, but I totally dig what he's saying.
I dig. No, you're going to dig it because he plays the same apparatus you do. That was Dennis Coffey from my interview with him from 2019.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
That's killer.
And
that's totally right on, though. He nailed it.
Of course he did. And, and that's the thing. I mean, that's my issue with modern and recorded music. And again, I'm just in my own bubble, and people I don't know a lot about anything. I just know what I hear. And I hear that technology, because we have the capacity and we have all this technology to use, that it has superseded humanity. And what I mean by that is like Glyn Johns. I mean, if you listen to the way he mic'd a drum set, it was a right and left overhead and maybe one mic on the bass drum. There was leakage that wasn't bad. But the point is that you listen to these albums and they're seeping with humanity, the pocket of time we love. And today, it's like he said, you don't have 12 guys in a room reading off the same chart to get that feel. But when you go and do a recording, not that you're Motown, but I mean, do you try to get everybody to hit live at one time? I mean, is that something that's in your manifesto as far as putting out something recorded?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, but generally speaking, I like if you can have most, if not everyone, live tracking at the same time. Perfection, it's got to be totally perfect, perfectly in tune, no mistakes. But a thing I like about all the older recordings, not all, but a lot of the older recordings I like, there's little flubs here and there or something,
Dude, exactly, man.
But to me, that gives it the character, and that gives it the life. I was recording this years ago, but kind of speaks the same thing. I did a solo on this tune of mine, a rockin' solo, and it like felt really good. It's like that's the one kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then I kind of flubbed the end of it, so I was like, well, I'll just cut in the little ending and make it better, you know. So I tried to do that, and it just totally immediately took the whole feeling out of it, even though it was just the very last couple notes of the song. It's weird.
Whoa, really? Or was it a psychological thing where you knew you were tampering with it?
It might have been. It might have
I
been
think
in
that's
my
what
head,
it was.
like
I mean, it was in your head, but that's still like, dude. By the way, there's a track I'm going to send you that's so killer. It's a Blue Mitchell track. It's called Valerie, with Freddie Robinson on guitar, and they like somehow things got mucked up, so they had to like. It's such a burning track, and they had to cut and paste Freddie Robinson's solo twice. It's so great, and it's it's so antiquated, but yet the song is just dripping with authenticity, man. I mean, that is the key. Nice. It's the key, and is there anything?
Yeah, send that to me.
No, I mean, dude, it is mind blowing. But I mean, is it like I my second book is coming out, and George Porter's in it. So I was calling him the other day to get his blessing on the excerpts and from our interviews, and he's like, I'm in a recording session. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I'm like, does Andy? Just to be honest, I mean, just to be as, do you and your brethren that live around there, you guys put on protective masks and go over and jam together? I just can't believe you guys can be in isolation. I don't know if Porter was doing something. Yeah. I just want to know what is being done because this is about as underground. This is more underground than Slugs and the black jazz scene of the 70s right now, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, most of us aren't doing that because we're trying to be safe, and there was like an event that happened out here a while back where there was a choir that was, you might have read about this, that they were getting together to rehearse and following the social distancing rules and wearing masks and whatever. But they ended up like half of them got sick.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, that's different than the nursing home in Kirkland.
Yeah, kind of like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So, I mean, some people are still sort of doing it and keeping the distance, but most of us are not. And if it's a recording session, you just do it at your home on your computer and then send the files over or whatever. But, yeah. I'm not ready to go out and start doing that again.
Absolutely not. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about before this. I kind of led in with this mantra about Dizzy and Miles. Those guys weren't millionaires. They probably should have been, but they made a lot of dough. And you had these bistro gigs in Italian restaurants, 6 nights a week, or the Playboy clubs when they first started opening. And there were just so many gigs, and live music was such a big part of society. And I just wanted you to talk about how you are able to survive as a professional musician. There's a lot of cats that play music, but they make their dough in production or doing other things that allow, within the music field. But just being a straight ahead musician before Corona, how did you do it?
That's a good question, man. I think, I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time now at this point, so that helps. I mean, and I have my hands in many different pies, so to speak. Like I play in a lot of different bands, and I like all different kinds of music, so I play, I try to play all different kinds of music, and try to have a good attitude and try to be fun to be around and play my ass off as much as I can, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a tricky question, but
I guess what I'm getting from you though is that you develop a reputation for being able to be a jack of all trades and then a reliable person, so you get more gigs in all different settings. Is that right?
Pretty much. And then, yeah, I don't know I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
And you recognize, when did you, I remember part of the second book that I have coming out is about the Merry Pranksters, and they really looked at life. If you really want to pull back from it, it was about having a family. It was about farming the land and being creative, supporting your family. That might be simplistic, but it was work on your art, take care of Mother Earth, and take care of your family. But there was another way to live life, aside from the rat race that the people that come to your concerts, that you allow them to heal from. And I just wonder, when you became comfortable in the way you were going to lead your life, that you wanted to live a life of music, and it wasn't going to give you everything in the world, at least at this point, but that materialism didn't mean as much as actually feeding your soul.
Yeah, so it kind of developed over a bunch of time, but the when it really hit home with me, was, I think I was a freshman in high school, and had a pretty intense psychedelic jam experience that was just, after that it was like, okay, like, this is what I do, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Like, this is what I love.
Oh man,
I don't want to do anything else. So, but I've been kind of playing since I was very little, and I remember writing music on the piano when I was like super young, maybe like 4 or 5 or something. But and luckily I come from a family of musicians, like I was saying, so they've always been supportive and been like, okay, that's something you can do. Like, a lot of my friends don't have that, so like their parents are like, that's not a real job or whatever.
Right.
People have told me that over the years too, but I mean, it's like, whatever. Yeah, it is.
It's interesting. It's good you had. Were your grandparents professional musicians, or they just did it as a hobby?
Yeah. My grandfather was a violinist and a conductor, and he taught at Kansas University for like 40 years or something, 30, 40 years, and did a summer camp for in Kansas, and a music summer camp. And grandma played piano, like classical piano quartets, and yeah, they're pretty rad.
Because it's good you came from a line of people that could relate to what you were doing, because there are plenty of families that would say it's not a real job.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I just the late great John Abercrombie, when we did our interview, he talked about the first job he had was with Johnny Hammond Smith, was the B3 player. He got a gig in New York, and the only reason he got the gig is that he had good time. If you didn't have good time, you weren't going to get a gig. And we are now living in the age of, we were saturated with material on YouTube, and we went into this sort of guitar hero mentality of just riffing and playing insane amounts of chords and language, and a lot of it was wanking. And I wonder if you could talk about, like, how the foundational structure, how the foundations of rhythm propelled you to be able to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end when you improvise without wanking it.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of approaches to that, but one thing I like is kind of and I've learned this from other great musicians who I've got the honor of playing with, but not by them telling me, but them by witnessing what they do. But kind of one thing you can do is begin a solo with like a rhythmic kind of motif, something fairly simple that people can latch onto, and then you kind of expand from that outward to wherever you want to go, really, and take it as deep as you want to go, and then eventually you can wind back and sort of start simplifying it and bring it back to a similar or the same sort of rhythmic or melodic motif that you started with, and it's kind of a cool journey to take people on, and I think a lot of people can relate to that kind of a concept.
Do you think
that makes sense?
No, it's perfect, and I know what you're talking about. I just I wonder about because the guitar, for generations younger than us, and they don't necessarily go back far enough in the history to listen to Willis Jackson or, Coleman Hawkins or, these big, horn players that were soloing, and you would have guitar just, just kind of comping, I mean, very little soloing. A lot of these younger cats, if they come up now, they're infatuated with just facility and technique. And I wonder if you think, just in your own personal journey, if having good time feel early and the focus on that rhythm lends itself to having a more concise attack as it relates to improvisation.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's. I mean, I've always been taught, and I've always believed it's more about like having good time and having really good tone than playing a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't really matter. Like someone like anyone, like I'd rather hear like Muddy Waters or someone play a couple notes than like Yingwei play like 3,000 notes. To me, I prefer that.
Yeah, I did.
It says more to me.
Yeah.
It has more meaning to me. But,
Yeah, I mean that's.
But I've never been into like a particular, been way into like shredding aspect of guitar. I mean, I appreciate it and it's really fun sometimes to do, but it's never been like the thing that sort of got me about guitar.
Did you? No, I mean I think you're speaking about the street scholar mentality. I mean it's just Chitlin Circuit blues and just sort of gumption on the not. Did you avoid the academy or did you wind up going to music school?
Oh, I went to University of North Texas.
Holy cow! Are you kidding me?
Nah.
Dude, that's the home of Billy Harper and all those cats. That's awesome. I mean, I just wonder.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's something there. I mean, again, I think that music. There was no jazz curriculum at Juilliard when Gary Bartz was going there. You could really make up your own rules. And now there's curriculums and things are codified and you have to learn all these Charlie Parker tunes and play them this way. And then you wind up sounding like your professor. I mean, I'm just talking about like things that, but my question is, did you learn music by ear before you learned to read? And the subset of that is, what is one thing that you learned in the academy that you can honestly take onto the bandstand and apply it to spiritual music?
The academy wasn't necessarily learning spiritualizing the music, honestly. That was more like myself and my deep affinity with John Coltrane, for example. So that was kind of, I don't know. I mean, the main thing I learned there as far as spirituality and like trance, like I was talking about earlier, is I played in they had a West African percussion ensemble at North Texas that I played in for all 4 years, and I actually got to go to Ghana and study this music in some of their religious ceremonies and for a summer of 2000, I believe. And
that is. Wait, hold on. Were there indigenous Ghanaian cats at the university that were teaching you?
Yeah. We had a chief priest, chief master drummer, Manabo Gideon Foley Alleroy, teaching us there, and he was just incredible. And so we got to go. Yeah, got to go hang out with him over there and hang out with a bunch of priests and their kids and just learn. We've been studying some of their, traditional music and drums and stuff, and so we got to go over there and help all of us and study the music even deeper and travel around and get our butts kicked and witness some spirit possessions and all sorts of amazing trance experiences. So that definitely influenced me a lot.
Well, I'm not gonna let you. You got. I mean, I just transcribed my interview with Famadou Don Moy from the AACM, and he was talking about going to Morocco and all these subsets of different rhythms and sub-Saharan. I mean, can you talk about a spiritual phenomenon, because I mean that's the whole magic of Africa. There is no word for art or music. It's just part of being. It's part of who you are. Why they sent over who was it when they were teaching? It was Harold Baptiste just was transcribing my interview with Ellis Marsalis, and when he went over to Africa, I was hanging out, and the African brothers said to him, "Well, what do you do over there in the United States?" And he said, "I teach music." And they said, "Why do you need to teach it?" And that's must have been pretty profound to see it integrated in just a normal way of life. I mean, can you talk about one experience that was imprinted on you?
Oh man, there was a ton. But just basically seeing how, like, when we play music, how over there, where I was at, the local priests were the musicians. They're kind of one and the same, and when we'd play music, and the whole community would be involved. Everyone would be like, whether you're just standing there clapping, or you're singing, or you're like up on one of the drums,
wow.
or a shaker. It was just cool seeing that, like, wow, everyone is involved in this. It's like a community thing, which I hadn't really experienced on that level ever before. It's kind of mind blowing.
The priests were the musicians. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm wondering about like the essence, the residue of that. Like, how long could you feel that noticeable communal vibe after that ceremony or that music was done? Because we live in such anonymity in the States. In a city like Seattle, you're walking, people are rushing, and they're going nowhere fast. Like Michael Carvin said, we're all going to the same place. You can either run or walk. It doesn't matter how fast you get there. But people barely make eye contact. They're in their own world. It's so far removed from that communal sense. Outside of an actual concert. Was there a lasting vibe and essence that you could feel after those ceremonies, and how long did they last for?
Definitely, and and they still are lasting in me, honestly.
Wow. Wow.
But it was real powerful, like, for months after I got back into the States. After that, it was very powerful. Just kind of seeping out of every pore of me, really, and it still is. We still have some field recordings we did over there, so I can go back and listen to those whenever I want. And it's always sends chills down me and inspires me.
Oh, dude, you're like such a Neil Lomaxian cat, man. You're recording that stuff. It's insane.
Yeah.
Did you know Mike Dillon at North Texas?
No, that was before my time, but
he's a graybeard to you.
I used to go see him, and like Earl Harvin and like all these cats, Dave Palmer. They were kind of the cats to go see when I was there.
That is so sick. I mean, Andy Coe. I mean, I feel like we're just getting warmed up, man. I mean, I hope we can get catch a second hang, man. You have a lot to offer, and but we dive deep on this show, so let's we'll stretch out next time.
Love it.
All right.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Be safe, and thanks a lot for catching a hang.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.
All right, peace, bro. Man. Later, man.
Peace.
Bye. A legend, Andy Coe, humble cat. That's it for the Jake Feinberg Show. See you tomorrow.